For over 40 years, we've had experience with the Force, but with Star Wars Acolyte, that definition is getting a little bit broader. Welcome to Star Wars Uplink. Episode 3 of Star Wars Acolyte is here, and it was really good.
Yeah.
The first 2 episodes, I was on the fence about. Nothing really happened. Story mildly got moved forward.
Yeah.
But with this episode, we're actually getting quite a bit of backstory and also world building here that I think is really interesting. We'll get into our full thoughts after this theory. Stay tuned for that. But I want to talk about the change of the Force. So this is really cool.
Yeah.
We've had various interpretations throughout the eras of the Force, but most of them have come from this Jedi perspective. What we're seeing in Star Wars Acolyte is a very clinical, structured, more like church religious portrayal of the Force and the Jedi. And I love that we're seeing a different interpretation of that same power, which is, I think it's great because it's this deepening of the lore around like, yes, just like in our world, there are various interpretations of religion across the galaxy. It's not just the Jedi and the Sith. There are various flavors. We got hints of this with, I think the Night Sisters are the clearest version of this, where we have a different perspective on the Force. Well, from the Jedi's perspective, it's more dark side-esque.
Right.
They aren't all evil and their use of it. And now we're seeing another flavor of it called the Thread.
Just touching on the Night Sister thing. So we've always seen that as the dark side stuff kind of thing.
Yes.
But I almost wonder now, was that just like a Jedi propaganda sort of thing? Like, is it truly evil? But
I highly doubt that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what we see in like the Clone Wars is from the Jedi's perspective.
Exactly.
As we see with Marin in like Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order, it's not necessarily evil.
Right.
It comes from a darker place from the Jedi's perspective because it's more like death magic is more applicable in terms of the definition.
Yeah.
But the Jedi, they're just using a different flavor of that same Force. The Night Sisters are utilizing a different flavor of the Force, and the Sith are using a different flavor of the Force.
Yep. And now we're seeing a whole other flavor of the Force.
Yes. Kind of like what we've seen in Legends with like the Yuzan Vong being something that is separate from the Force. We're now seeing a completely different Force. Or maybe not different Force, but different definition. Instead of this power being everywhere, this power being a force. It's a thread that you can wield and weave and choose whether or not to bend, break, or build with.
Yeah, it's definitely convoluted, and it's meant to be that way. The Force always kind of is.
Yes.
But yes, there's definitely this like strong. It's this thing that ties this coven together. Which again, I love that we have more witches. Like, thank you. This is awesome. I'm here for it. Star Wars and witches, for some reason, just goes together. Very, very good. Very cool. So yeah, so we get this coven of witches using a different flavor of the Force. They've clearly been persecuted. They've had to go into hiding, and now
going to this planet that was deemed lifeless.
Right. And now here they are trying to regain their strength again. And it's going to be really interesting. Obviously, there's a whole lot that they have touched on, but they have not actually gone into.
Yes.
Like the creation of the twins.
Yes.
That's going to be really interesting when we delve
which
into
I
that.
think will be more similar to like the Night Sisters with their death magic. It's probably around that same kind of thing of like this, from the Jedi's perspective, bastardization of the Force.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be they're going to see it as a corruption of what they think is pure and what the Force is truly there for, which is enlightenment, purity, and all these good things.
I also really appreciate that they have this different flavor of the Force and a different way to utilize it. It's power of one, power of two, power of many. So there's strength in numbers, and also I love the way that they've been able to wield the Force. They can both guide the Force of others and utilize the Force within themselves, or the thread. I love the ability to actually withstand some of this power in terms of like fighting against each other with just the Force.
Right. Yeah, that was a really neat moment of seeing Witch Lady, the head mother, go up against these ladies. It's interesting because I feel like I've seen it before, but at the same time, it's like this feels different. I think it's just because we don't ever see Jedi use it together. It's always such an individual thing.
Yes.
And I really appreciate that in this coven.
And we also don't see the Jedi historically lean too much into the Force. It's very much lightsaber forward, Force secondary. But in this era, it's reversed. We see the lightsaber is only used mostly as a last resort or as a symbol.
Right.
And the real power is with the Force. And I love that. I love this deepening of the Force. I love this deepening of this kind of perspective here. And I do find it interesting to another tie back into like the Night Sisters, the control of the second mother, almost like the second in command. I cannot remember their names yet. But she has this like mind control ability where she just scrambles Torben's mind and is like, if you want his mind to return to normal, you will leave. And he just comes out of it like completely terrified.
It's like, oh yeah, no, you're traumatized. You are traumatized for life now, buddy.
Yes. But also showcases how deep they are in the Force, which I think is another layer deeper in terms of like, there are different perspectives all across the galaxy with the Force. And this is just one of the other flavors. This is one of the other strengths. And even the Jedi can't withstand it.
I love that they're playing with the Force because it makes so much sense in this era. Just the fact that if the Jedi are more focused on the Force would mean that everyone else would also be more focused on the Force. It's like, it's just the time and place. Like, whereas in the original series and stuff, it's like we get more of this lightsaber. So, of course, the dark side's using more of the lightsaber. Like, there is this...
It's like a true representation of the Jedi. Like, the Jedi's core ability. Anyone can pick up a lightsaber and use it. The real thing that sets the Jedi apart from everyone else is the Force, is this thing that connects them to every other living being in the galaxy. And while everyone has the Force within them, and if you subscribe to like the whole midichlorian things, being more scientific, blah, 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 but just from like a spiritual perspective in the original trilogy, the Force is this living thing amongst everyone. Everyone can pull into the Force and everyone is a part of the Force. So now we have this deepening of it, of this is the true origin and foundation of what the Jedi should be, is utilizing this mystical power and making it less about being a war based structure, which is what we see in the prequels, and which is why everything's more lightsaber focused than it is Force focused. And then in the original trilogy, we just have the death of the Jedi. So Luke is learning only pieces of what Yoda knows. And what Yoda taught was mostly, in terms of like recency, to be used in a war.
Exactly. That was the point I was about to bring up too. Is like, these are the times. Like the prequels and the original trilogy, it's like we just got out of a war and we are entering another one pretty much. Like, and so I love seeing this step back and this different era. It just feels so good to be in something that's not fraught with we are struggling and we have to fight people, and like, because it doesn't make sense really with the Jedi's training of like we are all part of each other and like everyone can tap into the Force and like we're all connected. Like, then why the heck are we slashing and dicing and using our lightsabers when this is supposed to be such a like connective energy thing? Like, this is such a spiritual thing, and yet so it just makes so much sense that the focus 100 years earlier is all about the Force and it's all about this thread. And so good.
I'm very much looking forward to seeing where they take it into the future, and I think this is a good step forward for the Jedi and the Force. But let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Would love to hear your perspectives and theories from that episode. As always, check out our podcast, and may the Force be with you.